Hi guys, this is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Grunt style. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. We're already starting. And if you get anything from my work, I connect the dot, an epiphany, a thought, a light bulb moment, a mushroom cloud moment, new book to read, a new author to explore. Please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of this video. I didn't do a video yesterday. I was on the Time Is Now podcast, which happens to be on Rumble. Fun times. I was going to post the show, but to keep it on the safe side, I'm not. If you want to go check out the amazing conversations that I had on there, please go check that out on Rumble. I will leave the link in the description for the next couple of videos if you would like to check that out. And I've been very busy. I made this beauty for a Patriot friend. It's heavy. I made this heart. It's kind of hard to see with the lighting. It's all glary. It's thick. Wands. Ring holder. This one got a little busted, but that's all right. Keychains, I gotta figure out what to put in there. I was just testing out the molds and the epoxy with that. So yeah, I've been really busy. Oh, yeah. This one actually dried today. I can show everybody. It sparkles. There's flowers, installation foam, epoxy, all that fun stuff, all in one. I got some things to touch up on that, but I've been busy. Secret Doctrine. Addenda to Book 1. Reasons for this addenda. Many of the doctrines contained in the foregoing 7 stanzas and commentaries having been studied and critically examined by some Western theologists, the Theosophists, I always get that wrong, certain of the occult teachings have been wanting from the ordinary standpoint of modern science knowledge. They seem to encounter inscrutable difficulties in the way of their acceptance and to require reconsideration in view of scientific criticism. Some friends have already been tempted to regret the necessity of so often calling in question the assertions of modern science. It appeared to them, and I here repeat only their arguments, that to run counter to the teachings of its most eminent exponents was to court a premature discomfiture in the eyes of the Western world. It is therefore desirable to define once and for all the position which the writer, who does not agree in this with her friends, intend to maintain, so far as science remains, that, in the words of Professor Huxley, it is wise, organized common sense, so far as the inferences are drawn from accurate premises, its generalizations resting on a purely inductive basis. Every theosophist and occultist welcomes respectfully and with due admiration its contributions to the domain of cosmological law. There can be no possible conflict between the teachings of occult and so-called exact science, where the conclusions of the latter are grounded on a substratum of unassailable fact. It is only when its more ardent exponents, overstepping the limits of observed phenomena in order to penetrate into the arcana of being, attempt to wrench the formation of cosmos and its living forces from spirit, and attribute all to blind matter, that the occultists claim the right to dispute and call in question their theories. Science cannot, owing to the very nature of things, unveil the mystery of this universe around us. Science can, it is true, collect, classify, and generalize upon phenomena, but the occultist, arguing from admitted metaphysical data, declares that the daring explorer who would probe the innermost secrets of nature must transcend the narrow limitations of sense and transfer his consciousness into the region of noumenal and the sphere of primal causes. To effect this, he must develop faculties which are absolutely dormant, save in a few rare exceptional cases, in the constitution of the offshoots of our present fifth root race in Europe and America. He can in no other conceivable manner collect the facts on which to base his speculations. Is that not apparent on the principles of inductive logic or metaphysics alike? On the other hand, whatever the writer may do, she will never be able to satisfy both truth and science. To offer the reader a systematic and uninterrupted version of the archaic stanzas is impossible. A gap of 43 verses or slokas has to be left between the 7th already given and the 51st, which is the subject of Book 2, though the latter are made to run from one at sequence for easier reading and reference. The appearance of man on earth alone occupies as many stanzas, which describe minutely his primal evolution from the human Dahan-Kohans, the state of the globe at that time, etc., etc. A great number of names referring to chemical substances and other compounds, which have now ceased to combine together and are therefore unknown to the later offshoots of the fifth race, occupy considerable space, as they are simply untranslatable and would remain in every case inexplicable. They are omitted, along with those which cannot be made public. Nevertheless, even the little that is given will irritate any follower and defender of dogmatic materialistic science who happens to read this. Before proceeding to other stanzas, it is proposed, therefore, to define those already given. They are not in perfect accord or harmony with modern science. This we all know. Had they been, however, as much in agreement with the views of modern knowledge as a lecturer by Sir W. Thomson, they will have been rejected all the same, for they teach belief in conscious powers and spiritual entities, in terrestrial, semi-intelligent, and highly intellectual forces on other planes, and in beings that dwell around us in spheres imperceivable, whether through telescope or microscope. Hence the necessity of examining the beliefs of materialistic science, of comparing its views about the elements with the opinions of the ancients, and of analyzing the physical forces as they exit in modern perception before the occultists admit themselves to be in the wrong. We shall touch upon the constitution of the sun and planets and the occult characteristics of what are called devas and genii, and are now termed by science force or modes of motion, and see whether esoteric belief is defensible or not. Notwithstanding the efforts made to the contrary, an unprejudiced mind will discover under Newton's agent, material or immaterial, of his third letter to Bentley, the ancient agent which causes gravity, and in his personal working God, one finds just as much of the metaphysical devas and genii as in Kepler's Angelus Rector, conducting each planet and the species. When words get idolatrous, like that fancy writing, my eyes go whoop. Immateriae, something like that, by which the celestial bodies are carried along in their courses, according to the astronomers. We shall have in Book 2 to openly approach dangerous subjects. We must bravely face science and declare in the teeth of materialistic learning, of idealism, idealism, positivism, and all denying modern psychology, that the true occultist believes in the lords of light, that he believes in a sun, which, far from being simply a lamp of day, moving in accordance with physical law, and far from being merely one of those suns, which, according to Richter, are sunflowers of a higher light, is like milliards of other suns, and dwelling at the vehicle of God and the hosts of gods. In this question, of course, it is the occultists who will be worse. They will be considered on the prima facie aspect of the dispute to be ignoramuses and labeled with more than one of the usual epithets given to those whom the superficiality judging public, itself ignorant of the great underlying truths in nature, accuses of believing in medieval superstitions. Let it be so, submitting beforehand to every criticism in order to go on with their task. They only claim the privilege of showing that the physicists are as much at loggerheads among themselves in their speculations as the latter are with the teachings of occultism. The sun is matter and the sun is spirit. Our ancestors, the heathen, along with their modern successors, the Parisi, were and are wise enough in their generation to see it the symbol of divinity, and at the same time to sense within, concealed by the physical symbol, the bright God of spiritual and terrestrial light. Such belief is now regarded as a superstition only by rank materialism, which denies deity, spirit, soul, and admits to no intelligence outside the mind of man. But if too much of wrong superstition bred by churchianity, as Lawrence Ophelia calls it, renders a man a fool, too much skepticism makes him mad. We prefer the charge of folly and believing too much to that of the madness which denies everything as do materialism and idealism. Hence, the occultists are fully prepared to receive their dues from materialism and to meet the adverse criticism with which pour on this work for not writing it, but for believing in that which it contains. Therefore, the discoveries, hypotheses, and unavoidable objections which will be brought forward by the scientific critics must be anticipated and disposed of. It has also to be shown how far the occult teachings depart from the real science, and whether the ancient or modern theories are the most logical and philosophically correct. The unity and mutual relations of all parts of cosmos were known to the ancients before they became evident to modern astronomers and philosophers. And even if the external and visible portions of the universe and their mutual relations cannot be explained in any other terms than those used by the adherents of the mechanical theory of the universe in physical science, it follows that no materialist who denies that the soul of cosmos, which appertains to metaphysical philosophy, exists, but the right to trespass upon the metaphysical domain, that physical science is trying to and actually does encroach upon it. It's only one more proof that might is right and no more. Therefore, the discoveries, hypotheses, and unavoidable objections which will be brought forward by the scientific critics must be anticipated and disposed of. It has also to be shown how far the occult teachings depart from real science, and whether the ancient or modern theories are the most logically and philosophically correct. The unity and mutual relations of all parts of the cosmos were known to the ancients before they became evident to modern astronomers and philosophers. And even if the external and visible portions of the universe and their mutual relations cannot be explained in any other terms than those used by the adherents. Oh, I read this already. Goodness sakes, guys. I'm sorry. I had to pause. I had a phone call. An important one. Usually I ignore. Anywho, back to the book. Sorry, guys. Another good reason for this addenda is this. Since only a certain portion of the secret teachings can be given out in the present age, if they were published without any explanations or commentary, the doctrines would never be understood even by Theosophicists. Therefore, they must be contrasted with the speculations of modern science. Archaic axioms must be placed side by side with modern hypotheses, and comparison left to the sagacious reader. Sagacious. On the question of the seven governors, as Hermes calls the seven builders, the spirits which guide the operations of nature, the animated atoms of which are the shadows in their world of their primaries in the astral realms, this work will, of course, besides the men of science, have every materialist against it. But the opposition can at most be only temporary. People have laughed at everything and scouted every unpopular idea at first, and then ended up by accepting it. Materialism and skepticism are evils that must remain in the world as long as man has not quitted his present gross form to don the one he had during the first and second races of this round. Unless skepticism and our present natural ignorance are equilibrated by intuition and a natural spirituality, every being afflicted with such feelings will see in himself no better than a bundle of flesh, bones, and muscles, with an empty garret inside him, which serves the purpose of storing his sensations and feelings. Sir Humphrey Davy was a great scientist, as deeply versed in physics as any theorist of our day, yet he loathed materialism. Quote, "I heard with disgust," end quote, he says, "in the dissecting rooms, the plan of the physiologists of the gradual secretion of matter, and it becoming endued with irritability, ripening into sensibility and acquiring such organs as were necessary, by its own inherent forces at last rising into intellectual existence. Nevertheless, physiologists are not the most to be blamed for speaking of that only which they can see and estimate on the evidence of their physical senses. Astronomers and physicists are, we consider, far more illogical in their materialistic views than even physiologists, and that this has to be proved. Milton's, quote, light, ethereal, first of things, quintessence pure, end quote, has only become the materials only, prime, cheer, light of all material beings, first and best. For the occultists, it is both spirit and matter behind the mode of motion, now regarded as the property of matter, and nothing more than perceive the radiant numinum. It is the spirit of light, the firstborn of the eternal pure element, whose energy or emanation is stored in the sun, the great life giver of the physical world, as the hidden, concealed spiritual sun is the light and life giver of the spiritual and psychic realms. Bacon was one of the first to strike the keynote of materialism, not only by his inductive method, renovated from ill-digest Aristotle, but by the general tenor of his writings. He inverts the order of mental evolution when saying that the first creation of God was the light of sense, the last was the light of the reason, and his Sabbath work ever since is the illumination of the spirit. It is just the reverse. The light of spirit is the eternal Sabbath of the mystic or occultist. He pays little attention to that of the mere sense. That which is meant by the allegorical sentence, fiat lux, is when esoterically rendered, let there be the sons of light, or the nominal of all phenomena. Thus, the Roman Catholics rightly interpreted the passage of referring to angels and wrongly as meaning powers created by an anthropomorphic God, whom they personify in the ever thundering and punishing Jehovah. These beings are the Son of Light because they emanate from and are self-generated in the infinite ocean of light, whose one pole is pure spirit, lost in the absoluteness of non-being, and the other the matter in which it condenses, crystallizing into a more and more gross type as it descends into manifestation. Pause. That's how, that right there, that whole sentence right there is how I describe how we fall into materialism. I just use lesser, bigger words. Therefore, matter, though it is, in one sense, but the elusive dregs of the light, whose limbs are the creative force, yet has it in the full presence of the soul, thereof that principle which none, not even the sons of light, evolved from its absolute darkness, will ever know. The idea is beautifully, as it is truthfully expressed by Milton, who hails the holy light, which is the offspring of heaven, firstborn, and of the ethereal co-eternal being, since God is light, and never but in unapproached light, dwelt from eternity, dwelt in the bright influence of bright essence increated. Quite interesting. Modern physicists are playing at blind man's bluff. And now occultism puts to science the question, quote, is light a body or is it not? End quote. Whatever the answer of the latter, the former is prepared to show that to this day, the most eminent physicists know neither one way nor the other. To know what is light and whether it is an actual substance or a mere undulation of the ethereal medium, science has first to learn what are in reality matter, atom, ether, force. Now, the truth is that it knows nothing of any of these and admits it. It has not even agreed what to believe in, as dozens of hypotheses emanating from various and very eminent scientists on the same subject are antagonistic to each other and often self-contradictory. Thus, their learned speculations may, with a stretch of goodwill, be accepted as working hypotheses. In a secondary sense, the Stallo puts it, but being radically inconsistent with each other, they must finally end by mutually destroying themselves, as declared by the author of Concepts of Modern Physics. I hate when they make everything so tiny. Sorry, guys. And even when I blow it up, then I lose everything. Quote, it must not be forgotten that several departments of science are simply arbitrary divisions of labor. In these several departments, the same physical object may be considered under different aspects. The physicist may study its molecular relations, while the chemist determines the atomic constitution. But when they both deal with the same element or agent, it cannot have one set of properties in physics and another set of contradictory of them in chemistry. If the physicist and chemist alike assume the existence of ultimate atoms, absolutely invariable in bulk and weight, the atom cannot be a cube or oblate, spheroid for physical, and a sphere for chemical purposes. A group of consistent atoms cannot be an aggregate of extended and absolutely inert and impenetrable masses in a crucible or retort, and a system of mere centers of force as part of a magnet or of a Clamon battery. The universal ether cannot be soft and mobile to please the chemist and rigid elastic to satisfy the physicist. It cannot be continuous at the command of Sir William Thomson and discontinuous on the suggestion of Conchi or Fresnel. The eminent physicist A.G. Hearn may likewise to be quoted saying the same in the 43rd volume of his book, which we translate from the French as cited: when one sees the assurance with which are today affirmed doctrines which attribute the collectivity, the universality of the phenomena to the motions alone of the atoms, one has a right to expect to find likewise unanimity on the qualities ascribed to this unique being, the foundation of all that exists. Now, from the first examination of the particular system proposed, one feels the strangest deception. One perceives that the atom of the chemist, the atom of the physicist, that of the metaphysician, and that of the mathematician have absolutely nothing in common but the name. The inevitable result is the existing subdivision of our sciences, each of which, in its own little pigeonhole, constructs an atom which signifies the requirements of the phenomena in its studies without troubling itself in the least about the requirements proper to the phenomena of the neighboring pigeonhole. The metaphysician banishes the principles of attraction and repulsion as dreams. The mathematician, who analyzes the laws of elasticity and those of the propagation of light, admits that implicity without even naming them. The chemist cannot explain the grouping of the atoms and his often complicated molecules without attributing to his atoms specific distinguishing qualities. For the physicist and the metaphysician, partisans of the modern doctrine, the atom is, on the contrary, always and everywhere the same. What am I saying? There is no agreement, even in one of the same science, as to the properties of an atom. Each constructs an atom to suit his own fancy in order to explain some special phenomenon with which he is particularly concerned. The above is the photographically correct image of modern science and physics, the prerequisite of that incessant play of the scientific imagination, which is so often found in Professor Tyndall's eloquent discourses and vivid indeed, as shown by Stallo, and for contradictory variety leaves far behind it any fantasies of occultism. However, it may be, if physical theories are confessed, merely formal exploratory didactic devices, and if atomism is only a symbolical graphic system, then the occultist can hardly be regarded assuming too much when he places alongside of these devices in symbolical systems of modern science the symbols and devices of archaic teachings. I'm going to leave it there because the next two sections are really big and vast and awesome. So I'm gonna section that so that I'm not over doing hours of video or hours of reading. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this little tiny section of the Secret Doctrine. The addenda, we're getting there. So please don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Amish Mindset. And if you can help me out, everything is below. I'm still researching some stores because, you know, things are not easy, but I'm making a whole bunch of these so that I have a bunch. So there's, you know, more to select in the style that you want. But if there's anything, you can always email me if you're interested in anything that you see, and I can custom make things. And that does take time because I have to acquire the materials for that. But gotta put action into motion, because trying to find a job is that, I mean, I could get a retail job, no problem. It's getting one that I can chillax. And the remote stuff don't work. People have been like, why don't you just work remote jobs? Yeah, if they need a plug-in and I need dual screens and I need a whole setup, it not and I'm not a phone person. You hear how I can project. It's bad. But please go check out the interview. It's not really an interview. It's just like we're all just chit-chatting and getting some ideas out. And I had a really fun time. I love the Time Is Now podcast. I love everybody that's on there. They're amazing people, incredible, amazing. They are amusing at times. They're really funny souls who just brighten up the day and just tackle topics that might be offshoot for some, but nonetheless, it's really an amazing channel. So go find them on Rumble if you have a Rumble channel. Jason's on Mondays for the most part. And yeah. Hope to see you guys on the next one. And I don't know what I'm doing for the next video. We'll see. Okay, guys, until next one.